Uh, hey there again, and today we're going to talk about the Barber dime. And the way that it came about was they wanted to replace the seated coinage, which at the time would have been the Barber, would have been the seated. They already got rid of the half dime, so it would have been the seated dime, quarter, and half, as they already had gotten rid of the half dime and they changed the dollar, and it's now the Morgan at this point. But they wanted to replace the seated coinage, which was in effect since effectively the 1830s. And the mint director, his last name was Leach. He ordered a contest to design a new coin. The only problem was all of the invited artists, most of them refused, and the ones that were submitted from the general public were not deemed good enough for a design. So the chief mint engraver, Charles E. Barber, made the design for the dime, quarter, and half dollar. And it would stay in effect until they switched them off in 1916 after it had run its 25 years. Alright, the design of the Barber dime. The front has a depiction of a liberty head, which is what the real name of these is. It's a liberty head, but a lot of people call them Barbers. And it has the United States of America around the top, and she's wearing a headband that has like a wreath and the dates at the bottom. And the reverse of the coin has one dime in the middle, and it's almost identical to the seated Liberty dime design that they had for the last part of the seated Liberty series. That was designed by James B. Longacre, and it was just modified a little bit by Barber. Designer initials. There is a B for Barber that is down under the neck. It's going to be hard to see, but it's under the neck. You will see a B for Barber. All right. The designer of this coin is Charles E. Barber, and we talked about him in the Liberty V nickel episode, so we won't go too much in depth with him. But he used very similar obverse designs for the dime, quarter, and half dollar. And the reverse design of the quarter and half dollar are the same. And the obverse is pretty much the same. They were just different sizes. In the dime, he designed the reverse of the dime, which was based off of James B. Longacre's previous design that he made for a coin. So, if you want to know a little bit more, you can check out the last episode, the V nickel episode. Alright, the specifications of the Barber dime: it weighed 2.5 grams, it was 90% silver, 10% copper, which ends up being 0.07234 ounces of pure silver, so it ends up being just under 1/10 of an ounce of silver. It has a reeded edge, and it is 17.9 millimeters in diameter, which is smaller than the penny, which is 18.1. The reason being was, in this time, they wanted to state a tradition of the amount of metal in the coin would have been what the coin was worth. Alright, mints. This coin was minted in Philadelphia, which would have had no mint mark, and it was also minted in Denver, which is a D, San Francisco for an S, and New Orleans, which we haven't talked about New Orleans too much yet. I think we did in a 3-cent silver piece video, but it would have been depicted by an O. And the location of the mint mark is underneath the wreath on the reverse. Like right here, you can see that there is a D below the wreath. Alright, now we're going to talk about mintages of the Barber Dime series, and most, with a few little exceptions, most of them from 1900 up until when it ended in 1916 are very affordable. In some lower grades, you can even get them at the price of bullion. It's just, that's the way they are. They don't go for big money. Especially a young person, go to a coin show. You'll probably find some that are in maybe good, very good, 8 maybe, something like that. And you could probably pick them up for under $5 a piece. Very affordable. Now, there are a few that were minted pretty small in that time. Like the 1913 S was only 510,000. The 15S was just under $1 million. I know that off the top of my head. The 1909D was on just under $1 million, and most of the other ones were at least $1 million. Many of the Philadelphia mints were pretty populous. Now, when you get into the older dates, some of the ones that are decent are the 1903 S was only 613,000. The 1901 S was 593,000. And the 1896 S was 575. 1897 O was 666,000. So those are the ones you're going to want to look for. And then there's a couple other real low ones, like the 1885 New Orleans was only 440,000. There's a few, there's other few in the early dates. Mostly the O mint marks were, 600,000, 720,000, stuff like that. So those are the mintage figures for the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and the later date San Francisco's especially very affordable. Now we're going to get into key dates to the series. The rarest of all of them when it comes to price is the 1894 S. Is a very expensive coin. I'd have to look to know off the top of my head, but if I remember right, I think the last one that sold was like $1.5 million, because there was only, I think, 20 something of them. I want to say 24 of them made. I can look in the book real quick. Yeah, there was 24 of them made as a mintage, and it's $1.5 million was what one sold for in 2007. But some key dates that you want to look for these, there are some semis, which mean that the semi-key date would be one that, say, might be $50 instead of $10 as a normal issue, might be, something of that nature. So I'm not going to really list those, because there are some of those. You want to get a book and look. Knowledge is always, as the title of the episodes are, knowledge is always what you want to know. So go grab a book, get some info before you go and buy. But the 1893... the 1893, 3/2 is a big one. Also, the 1895 New Orleans is another big one. And some variety dates, the 1905 New Orleans had a micro O version, which goes for a lot more money than the regular O did. And the only other couple that I can really just kind of mention in there is the 01S and the 03S, were lower mintages. They're not huge money, but they are more than some of the others. And some of the early New Orleans mints, like the 1894, 1896, 1897, are could be pretty expensive coins. But again, always, I'm not really big on the Barber series, which is why I don't know a ton about it, but go get a book. That's the best way that you can really get to know what you're going to do before you start buying in them, and know how hard it is to get a certain thing, and things like that. It's really important to know that kind of stuff. So I hope you're enjoying the series, and see you for the next one.